What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to go back and look at Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights. In my opinion, a classic. Now, of course, replaying it, boy, do I have a lot to say, in 2025. But this is, when I look at the game cover of this, which I actually own this thing physically, okay? It just brings back so many memories. I remember going down to the basement of the first house I ever lived in and seeing this and popping it in and even seeing where you would store a game such as this. But I mean, the cover I just feel is so iconic, looks so beautiful. Now, when you actually jump into the game, I actually really love just the visual look of the cover, the way that each of these characters, including all the monsters, look. They look pretty good in the game, to be honest with you, but there's something just so special about seeing that cover, and it really does take you back. I think one of the greatest things that could kind of be said about this game is it really captures an era. It definitely gives the vibe of being in a Scooby-Doo type theme thing, right? The monsters do have just a look to them. These characters, Velma, Daphne, everybody just looks like they would back in, I think, 2002 this game came out. I mean, it brings you back to that era. I was even looking through the manual that comes with the game, and the last, 4 pages of it is just kind of a promotion for everything Scooby-Doo that was happening at the time, the live-action movie, but then just any of these animated films just throughout time, populate the last couple pages of the manual. So visual appeal, and I mean the mansion itself, and just everything visually about this game, even though yes, it has been almost 25 years, I still think, to say it looks good, I mean, there's the cut scenes where there's kind of like that close zoom in on these people's faces, and does it look outstanding? No, but it does it bring you back, and can you tolerate it? Because it's doing what I think it could do so well at the time, and just capture that Scooby-Doo spirit. Yes, okay, I will give it the pass, on that. Even the sound, I mean, you could talk mainly about the voice acting, I think is tremendous, and you got some guest stars here. You have Tim Curry voicing the Mastermind, and I'm talking like kind of the vampire ghost Mastermind version, right? But you have some classic, and that's another thing when I hear these people talk. I mean, these are legendary voice actors. These are people that did, I think the guy who does Fred was doing him in the 60s, originally. So I mean, they have some long-standing actors that were doing it, and we're even still doing it at the time, right? I mean, I grew up with the live-action movies, so Matthew Lillard kind of is my Shaggy, right? But I mean, I remember watching the movies. I had all the VHS tapes and the Hex Sisters and all that. That was just celebrated the anniversary of that. I remember those so well, and you hear those voices in your head, and they play off in the game. So again, in terms of kind of just capturing that energy visually and sound wise, it gets a 10 out of 10. It will always get a 10 out of 10 from me. Now, there are times where you just, I think, to me at least, I turn the volume completely off, okay? Because it is one of those classic games that even though it's a 3, 4, 5-hour game, you are going to hear Scooby saying the exact same thing 5,000 times, right? The amount of times that he's scared because of a werewolf, you're going to hear it no joke, literally 200 plus times. So eventually it just becomes very, very tiresome, and I just turn the volume off and don't even bother with it. But, again, kind of classic, for the time. So what is this game? Well, to be honest with you, I remember the cover so well. I remember playing it, and I mean, I had it. I physically had this game. I actually don't know if the game that I have right now, I think I rebought it because I don't think my parents might have done something with it. I guess what I'm saying is mine's not the original, copy that I remember. But I remember that so well. I don't remember the game so well. I know I played it. I had to have. But in terms of what the game actually is, it is, oh man, it is the ultimate collectathon game that you're ever going to experience. Now, I did grow up in the age of, I mean, Spyro is probably, to me, I don't look at Crash as a collectathon type game. Maybe you should. I don't personally. So Spyro, to me, growing up was that game. But I didn't play too many of them. And I mean, you can do collectathons really well and then really bad. I was actually shocked at how good the structure of this game was. The one thing that took me quite a while was to get used to the map. I think the map, if you were to remake this game, which by the way, you get a Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrate, right? We've gotten the Spyro games remaster. We've gotten the Crash games remaster. I actually think this game kind of would work. I don't know if there's this diehard group of Scooby-Doo fans that would support the game in the hundreds of thousands or millions required, to make a remaster remake. But I actually think this game has, again, that structure in place where, like, everything is very sound. You're constantly working towards inventions, and inventions get you over the hump somewhere. It was actually kind of shocking, not just how much of a collectathon I forgot this game was, but how much of a, I mean, would you call it a Metroidvania type game? I feel like I kind of would, because there's multiple times, right? So there's, 4 maps in all, I guess maybe 3.5. And in those maps, you're going to go around kind of from point A to point B, and they're just structured in very, very small levels. I think there might be 70, 80 levels in all in this game. Now, they're structured, again, in like kind of 3 major zones, but you go through them, and you're just looking for Scooby snacks. And eventually, those snacks are going to unlock doors that'll get you, not necessarily from point A to point B, because there's a lot of those you can just freely do, but some major areas that you might need 100, 200, 250, 300, whatever, Scooby snacks, right, to go through. There's these warp pads that'll get you from kind of one major area to another major area. And again, I think that was the one huge flaw I found with this game, even playing it as an absolute full-grown adult, at this point. I mean, the amount of times I got lost or confused, even in kind of what the game was trying to convey of like, okay, you're going to have to go here, and this place is going to be blocked off to you. Eventually, you kind of just figure out, okay, only one of these levels can I push, like, 2 more levels, right? I can go 2 more zones in this place. Okay, because I did that, now I got this invention. Well, I was stuck on, like, level 4 over there. Well, now I can get to level 7 over there, and then there's going to be something blocking me there, and then I'm going to have to go back and back and back. And I mean, that's the Metroidvania type thing that I did not, and I think you could probably consider it, right? Because you're going to be backtracking. There's areas that are kind of blocked off to you in each of these levels that require a certain invention, that in order to get to an invention, well, number one, you might need another invention to get to an invention, but you also might need Scooby snacks. And I guess that would kind of be flaw number 2 for me, is that collectathons can be fun. And I think actually just as a whole, this game is actually very, very good, much better than I remember it or thought it was going to be, I guess, nowadays. But, this game actually does kind of push you to go for like the 100%. Like, if you think you can kind of just go from point A to point B and not get every Scooby snack on your way, you are sorely mistaken, because towards the end of this game, I think you need 750 and then 800. Those are the last 2. And I mean, that was a struggle. In fact, it was a struggle even to get 5, 6, 650, but the game pushes you. In all, God, I don't even know. You might need to get maybe like 5 to 10,000 Scooby snacks, in the entire game just to unlock every single area. And the thing is, there's only that many in the game. And that's what I really, as I was playing, I started to discover, okay, it's actually far more intricate, than I don't even know if I made it past the opening hour, as like a 5, 6, 7-year-old. I don't really know if you can. I actually was reading a comments on walkthrough videos of this game of people saying, in their childhood, they just got stuck and they quit. And I think a lot of these games, when I go back to these early 2000 games, I think a lot of them actually have that exact same vibe where you remember them fondly. It kind of captured an era. It's your childhood, but also like maybe they're terrible. That could be one pathway. They could just be god awful, nowadays, or they could be maybe okay. But you would say, how in God's name could I have beat that as a kid? I can barely beat it as an adult, and that's kind of how I experienced it now. I mean, the platforming is actually, I would say, pretty darn good. It can get pretty difficult in some zones. I'm not a big fan that, like, I think water specifically, like if you land in water, it's not like you take a hit, it's that you just kind of immediately die. And the checkpoint system in this game is very interesting. It's pretty much, I think, the beginning of every, spot that you enter. So you enter a spot, and if the spot's short, it's not that big of a deal. If the spot's long, and there was one kind of area towards the tail end, maybe like 80% of the way through the game, I kept falling in water, and it would put you back, and you have to activate, a bunch of devices, I think 2 devices. If you activated that second device and was doing the platforming, so you're already like 2.5 things in, and you fall, you have to restart the entire thing. So there was a couple times the checkpoints. I think as a kid, I would have cried. I would have like flipped out. There's no way. In fact, I can tell you for a fact, there's no way I made it to that point. But I can also tell you for a fact, I would have quit. As a 6-year-old, I would have put that controller down and walked away. I didn't have patience for that stuff, and I barely have patience for it now. But besides, I mean, and they are big things, you know, let's be real, that can really get you aggravated, and it's not perfect. Nothing in this game is perfect. Like, there's times where you'll try to headbutt one of these ghosts, and you'll miss, or you'll stop the attack right before the ghost hits you, and then they'll hit you, and you'll take the damage. So there's a couple times where, you know, it's an early 2000s game. The platforming isn't perfect, but to be honest, again, in terms of how responsive it is and kind of landing where you want him to land, it is far better than I thought it was going to be. I also wish, and this is something that I'll be honest with you, okay, going into this game, I did not remember that you only play as Scooby-Doo like the entire time. I understand like the name and the IP and all that jazz, but I actually feel the other characters were very underutilized because they did have their moments. I actually thought they were extremely strong when they did have their moments, but it's a phenomenal opening and it's a phenomenal ending. Even though I want to talk about the ending though in this video. Good ending, good beginning, and it very much just feels like a TV show episode or a movie. You know, they're setting it up. Why are we here? What's going on? You get introduced to a character. You know, Holly, she tells you what's happening, and off you go, right? Everybody's split up. Scooby's all alone, and then, you know, the hunt begins, right? Now, in this, and like I said, there's kind of 3 main zones. Each zone, you're helping to save one of the main 3, right? Shaggy doesn't count because Shaggy is consistently getting into trouble in this game, and you're consistently helping him out. So I like that structure, and it's something that you kind of realize as you're going through the game. It's like, okay, each zone is for one of these people that's stuck in a situation. Eventually, they'll all come together. Eventually, you'll kind of have your final boss fight, and you'll be done. But I like it, but I think you do sacrifice the team, you know, because really the only time you get them interacting as a team generally is the beginning and is the end. And the end did feel very classic. You know, again, remembering growing up watching the movies and all this stuff, like you have kind of the end explanation of like the whodunit type stuff. I'm used to that now with Scream, but I mean, Scooby-Doo did it first. And so they have it, and it's perfect. You know, it's really, really good. But you realize, okay, these characters interacting with each other, they don't do it, you know, because they're all, number one, they're all separated, and number two, you just don't see them. You see them only for their cutscene when you fight a boss. I will say the bosses actually are incredibly good. Because you're so used to just jumping, headbutting, and doing like ground pounds. But the bosses themselves, like there's a little bit of, it's kind of timing. You're kind of lining things up. Actually, with all 3 of them, you're lining things up, and you're either hitting something, or in the case of the 3rd boss, he's hitting something when he throws the sword. So I do like it. And again, I keep saying it, but I did overall very much enjoy this. Like I thought it would be kind of crazy and kind of maybe it would just age really, really poorly, because again, that's kind of like a 50-50 thing of games of your youth. But I really think it held up far, far better than I thought. I thought, again, like just getting all the inventions and them kind of unlocking new zones, all of that stuff was fun, you know, and it pushes you to collect everything, which maybe isn't so fun, but it really is sound in terms of its game design, where you feel, and again, I think just the aesthetic too, when you're going through all these things, to see the pictures on the wall and to see these monsters, you know, that are popping out, which by the way, these monsters are classic Scooby-Doo monsters, and that does bring us to the ending. I want to talk about that. For the most part, I loved it. There's just one thing that I have a question about 23 years later, but you know, one of the things is, okay, well, a lot of this stuff is classic Scooby-Doo. Well, why? Well, you find out because of the ending that it's because Daphne had told Holly about their past, you know, things that they solved. So she kind of has like a case on all of them and what they've done in the past. So the monsters that we're experiencing are monsters that not just the gang is experienced with, but also we are, you know, as just players and as Scooby-Doo fans. So I really liked that. I also, the thing with the twist, okay, the thing with like, okay, who was the actual culprit, right? So spoilers for a game that's 20 plus years old. So it was Holly, right? They try to pull a, you know, switcheroo. You think it's not going to be her. I had thought, now I don't think I beat this game growing up, as I've said like 5 times. So I didn't know who it was. So going as a grown adult now, you know, I was trying to figure it out as I was playing it. I suspected her. I figured it was her the entire time. The issue this game has, okay, is it really only has like 3 characters it can be. And I think that is what gets in the way of like a budgeted, IP tie-in type thing, is this game generally in scope was very small, right? So the amount of characters, like that groundskeeper, I thought maybe for a sec, when Shaggy said it could be the groundskeeper, I thought, you know what, not a bad move, Shaggy, because that is one of the only characters it can be, because just factually, they didn't introduce anybody, so it has to be a character kind of like we've seen. So I thought Holly made so much sense, and just the way that things were kind of happening around her. Now, the one thing I will throw out, though, right, so the big twist is that everything was a hologram, right, and then Shaggy makes the joke like, Hollygram, and that was funny. By the way, the laugh track that they kept playing got annoying a couple times, but overall, I think it captured the vibe. Like, I actually really liked it 9 out of 10 times. But okay, well, here's the question. So if everything we saw wasn't actually real, then what were we running into the whole game, right? I guess the thing is, I think they call it in the manual, it's Scooby's like courage. It's his courage meter is the top. It's the health bar, right? You have like 5 hits and you're dead. So those hits are actually his courage, not his health, and the Scooby Snacks replenishes it. So I guess that is a clever way of doing it, because I guess you can argue that these things are scaring him. They are not hitting him. The issue is, though, the enemies actually do hit you, right? Like ghosts run into you, and like the caveman, like he literally hits you with his, stick. So you're getting hit, but like technically you're not. And like the big twist is even Holly herself has, for the most part, been a hologram throughout the whole game, right? So it's like, I do like it. I overall like it. I think it's actually very, very clever, and I think you kind of had to do something like that, to be honest. The only issue is you've been going through the whole game with Scooby headbutting things and then them hitting you, but that's just the issue, right? Like when you're going around headbutting, pick your monster, but when you're doing that and you hit them and they, disintegrate or whatever, they wouldn't actually do that if they were just holograms. You would have figured it out, like in the very beginning of the game, versus at the very end. So that's kind of the only thing. Well, those 2 things, right? The fact that holograms don't actually work, and the fact that the Holly makes so much sense and you expect it to be her, then they kind of, they try to fool you. And I actually do like that, because, he's only mentioned, right? So it's like, okay, so a character that, you verbally say, but we don't actually see. Like, I can buy that. There's an extra candidate, to be this mastermind, right? But then it's like, okay, well, they actually, it is her all along, and that's okay. But that's just, when it's a show or a movie, you could have like 6, 7 suspects. I always talk about with Scream, right? Like the more people that are alive, the more suspects that you could possibly have. In a Scooby-Doo game, when there's literally, 2 like on-air people it could be, well, it has to be one of those 2, right? So when you rule one of them out, it can only be the other. So that was kind of the pitfall, the story ran into. But overall, I really did enjoy it. I'll be honest, I thought I wouldn't enjoy it. I thought I would maybe enjoy it for the vibes for 5 minutes, but turns out it's actually like a rock-solid platformer, a collectathon platformer, I guess. Again, not perfect, like what game, I guess, from that time was. And really, the thing is, right, this is probably the best Scooby-Doo game we've ever gotten. I've played maybe 1 or 2 others. I've looked at like the Metacritic score and just kind of fan opinion. To me, this has always been my favorite, and so I just have that biasness, but I think to many, this is the best one, and this is still not like an amazing game or anything. So number 1, I think that we do deserve like really good Scooby-Doo games that we really have never had. But number 2, again, if there's a candidate to remaster or remake something, I don't think this is as strong as like the original Battle for Bikini Bottom is legitimately good. Okay, I think this game is probably also good, you could say that, but maybe Battle for Bikini Bottom is better. And that's probably as close as you're going to get. So I feel like if you were to remaster or remake something, this would be really like a really good idea, to be honest, because you can imagine this in 2026, 2027. The visual stuff, some fine-tuning with the platforming, maybe making the map and how you traverse it a little bit easier and like easier to understand. I think you'd actually have a really good remaster in your hands, and I feel like there would be a group of people that would take a Scooby-Doo thing, especially something like this, because this is very, I would say, iconic for the time. So there's my thoughts on it. You guys let me know in the comments yours. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and hope to see you all on the next one.